Exposed. My daughter's surprising choice on her wedding day led to an amazing transformation. Sarah stood in the quaint chapel, her fingers trembling as she adjusted the lace hem of her simple but elegant dress. Today was supposed to be pure joy, but dread gnawed at her insides. Emma, radiant in her bridal gown, shimmered with hope, but the specter of Tom, her estranged father, loomed heavy in the atmosphere. This man who put ambition before family had returned to their lives, uninvited and unwanted, shadowing what should be a day filled with celebration. Pride surged in Sarah's heart, yet it was tinged with unease. She had sacrificed everything for this moment, working night shifts in the hospital, missing holidays, pouring her soul into being enough for her daughter. And now Emma stood willing to embrace the very man who had left them shattered, like glass scattered across their lives. Emma's wedding, a time meant to honor their bond, was now a stage for memories Sarah wished to bury deep. The gentle strum of guitar music filled the chapel, and Sarah felt her heart race. Each note served as a tick of a clock, counting down to uncertainty. Did Emma truly comprehend the pain that wove through their history? The whispers in the congregation amplified the tension, each murmured confusion a reminder of what betrayal had felt like. The values Sarah instilled flickered. Loyalty, forgiveness, even redemption. What of the hurt that justified every sleepless night? Before she could steady her breath, the hushed crowd drew their gaze toward Emma. There she was, poised yet vulnerable, ready to address the past head-on, confronting the very essence of family. Today isn't just about love, Emma said, voice trembling yet strong, but about the courage to confront the past. With eyes locked on her daughter, Sarah's world tipped. How could they rebuild what Tom had broken, especially when he never thought it necessary to fight for them? Dad, Emma declared, turning to Tom, her voice reverberating in the stillness of the chapel. Sarah's heart sank as Emma acknowledged the painful reality. How could her daughter so effortlessly glide through the emotional minefield? This was not just their wedding, it felt like a reckoning. Sarah couldn't suppress the flurry of thoughts. The sacrifices made, the sleepless nights, the whispers of self-doubt hanging like fog. Was forgiveness truly the answer? Before they could journey deeper, Sarah's thoughts fractured once more as the crowd gasped collectively at Emma's next words. I want to write a new chapter for us, one where we can forgive and move forward. The air crackled, each note of disagreement, support, agreement, judgment shapeshifting around her. Yet as Sarah's heart wrestled with both anger and hope, the simplest question echoed in her mind. Could she ever forgive the man who had fractured their lives? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The first raindrops began to fall, tapping against the chapel roof like the heartbeat of a deeply conflicted soul. Every murmur from the guests wrapped around Sarah, tightening her chest. Who would they judge as the true family today? The day had come to an emotional boiling point, and Sarah felt her past crash against the present, leaving her breathless at the crossroads of desire and duty. Could a familial bond be rewritten, or was this pursuit of acceptance a dangerous path to tread? As the rain mingled with her rising confusion, the uncertain atmosphere engulfed her, leaving Sarah on the brink of an emotional storm. She was unprepared, wrestling with feelings she thought she'd buried long ago, a moment pregnant with choice, a response that could redefine everything. The flickering lantern lights reflected the turmoil within, and as she caught Emma's gaze, the sensation was undeniable. Change was brewing, and the outcome was impossible to foresee. The rain intensified, each droplet sounding like an urgent reminder that time was slipping away. Sarah stood frozen, caught between past grievances and a whirlwind of potential for healing. Emma's conviction radiated through the chapel, but Sarah struggled to align herself with that vision of reconciliation. Deep-rooted pain clawed at her, threatening to overshadow the joy that should have enveloped the day. As Emma continued to speak to Tom, Sarah felt a surge of anger welling up inside her. How could her daughter so freely offer forgiveness? Did Emma not see the years of sacrifice that lay behind them? The loneliness and the pain of waiting for a father who never arrived? The woman in white perceived shards of hope while Sarah clung to memories like anchors, tethered to a life that had taught her that love diversifies but rarely comes without cost. Determined to maintain control, Sarah shifted her focus to her daughter's face, searching for traces of uncertainty. Instead, what she found was immense courage painted in varying shades of vulnerability. Emma's willingness to extend an olive branch forced Sarah to question her own beliefs about loyalty and family. If she kept harboring resentment, would she not effectively undermine everything she had worked for in Emma's life? Caught in a flood of conflicting emotions, Sarah's internal dialogue shifted from protective instinct to introspection. Was it time for her to break the cycle of bitterness? Could embracing forgiveness be a step toward reclaiming her narrative and reshaping their future? Anxiety wrestled with the glimmers of realization. The quiet intensity of the chapel became suffocating. Even silence seemed to echo her unresolved conflict. She had always held tightly to the belief that she was strong for both of them, fortified by an unwavering resolve. And yet, this moment demanded vulnerability not just from Emma, but from her as well. The weight of that realization felt heavy but also liberating. "Mom, please," Emma's voice broke through her tumult. She wasn't asking for Sarah's total acceptance of Tom. Instead, she was requesting something even bolder: an openness to healing. A chance to rewrite their story. The very thought rattled Sarah's defenses, clawing at the wall she had carefully constructed from years of hurt. As Emma's eyes locked onto hers, Sarah felt an overwhelming urge to respond. What if by embracing change she could shift the trajectory of their lives? What if she wasn't just keeping herself safe? What if she was stifling Emma's growth? The stakes felt impossibly high. In that moment, a flicker of vulnerability surged through her, a realization that forgiveness was not just about Tom, but also about freeing herself. In the pursuit of love and acceptance, she recognized the potential for personal transformation. "Let us talk," Sarah finally said, her voice shaky but resolute. The tension in the room quivered. The audience held its breath as she stepped forward, her heart pounding. This was only the beginning. But as she advanced towards the altar, Tom's eyes locked onto hers, raw with emotion, a reflection of her own fractured past, and a tremendous storm brewed within her. How would she confront him? What words could transform pain into something stronger? With her breath catching, the path of their new chapter was yet to be forged. Could it be that in facing Tom, she would uncover hidden strengths she never knew she possessed? The moment had arrived, the reckoning was at hand. Would she find the courage to stand up not only for herself but for the future she dreamed of with Emma? As Sarah stepped forward, memories began to flash through her mind like flickering light, scenes of disappointment, laughter, dreams obscured by an endless fog of unresolved anger. Each heartbeat drummed against her ribcage as she approached Tom, the man who had walked away from them years ago, leaving an indelible mark on her heart. He had once been a promise, a possibility, but now he was a ghost from her past, a potent reminder of all that had been fractured. The air felt electric, charged with potential yet suffocating with doubt. Her resolve, which had felt so solid only moments ago, wavered. The chapel's light dimmed briefly as she neared him, and suddenly, she was transported back to another time, the two of them laughing, planning a future that now felt like a cruel mirage. "Sarah," Tom began, his voice a rough whisper, an edge of hope intertwining with fear. The sincerity in his eyes caused a pang deep inside her. It mirrored the longing she had buried for so long. Was it really hope she saw, or merely a reflection of the past? "What do you want, Tom?" she managed to demand, forcing her voice to remain steady even as it threatened to crack. The onlookers held their breath, the anticipation palpable. Here was truth on the table, laid bare for them all to witness. And yet, it was only the beginning of a conversation that could reshape everything. "I want to apologize," he said, his vulnerability stark against Sarah's fortified defenses. "I was a coward. I didn't know how to be a father, and I left at the first sign of trouble. I'm sorry for the hurt I caused you, and for everything I did to Emma." The sincerity of his words hung in the air, and Sarah felt the wall she'd built over the years begin to tremble. "Is this really what you believe? That it's enough to simply say you're sorry?" Her response came out sharper than she intended, and she instantly felt regret chasing the words. "I know words alone won't erase the pain," he continued, his gaze unwavering. "But I've changed. I want to be in her life if she'll have me. And I want to be the father you always needed. The idea festered in her mind, ethereal and unfocused like the clouds above. Part of her wanted to scream that he had no right to claim change after so much time, but another part, a part she hadn't dared to give voice to, murmured softly that perhaps, just perhaps, she could allow these new beginnings to exist alongside her old scars. Emma stepped up beside Sarah, her small frame filled with inexplicable strength. Mom, please. This matters to me. I don't need you to forgive him today, but consider it. Consider that we might start fresh together. Sarah turned to look at her daughter, the tenderness in Emma's eyes igniting a fire she thought had long been extinguished. Emma's plea pierced through years of hurt and resentment. Unwrapping herself from the heavy cloak of anger felt disorienting, yet seductive. The storm inside her rumbled, saturated with the potential for healing. But one question resurfaced sharp as a dagger. Could she truly forgive? And what would forgiveness demand from her? In that moment of vulnerability, she teetered on the cusp between protecting the integrity of her own heart and allowing a fractured family to unite again. The temptation was real, and the risk thrummed beneath her skin. As she looked between Tom and Emma, Sarah felt a fissure in her resolve. Each person before her represented choices, and with choices came power. Power to change her pain into something she could control. Emma, she began, her voice faltering. The weight of her words dangled like fruit ripe for picking. Would she grasp them, face the tempest, and uncover the strength required to redefine not only her relationship with Tom but the legacy of love she wished to leave for Emma? As she contemplated her next move, a voice of familiar, haunting shadow reverberated within her, urging her to grapple fully with her own history. It was not just about confronting Tom. It was about confronting herself. With a heart trembling on the edge of transformation, another question emerged, one that could alter the very fabric of their future. Would she be able to embrace the chaos of vulnerability, or would she succumb to the comfort of familiar pain? Whatever the choice, the kaleidoscope of her past was ready to reshape. She could sense the winds of change gathering fast. The moment hung heavily in the air, echoing with unanswered questions and flickering hopes. Sarah's mind was an attic cluttered with memories, each item a testament to her journey. She felt like an auctioneer, brimming with the weight of her choices but unable to relinquish past treasures. Tom's apology, a fragile thread binding the remnants of their shared life, dangled precariously before her. Sarah, he said softly, breaking her reverie. What do you need from me? How can I show you that I'm different now? His earnestness pierced through the tumult of her thoughts, but instead of clarity, it further muddled her resolve. She resided in a realm where trust could easily become betrayal, where forgiveness could unravel into bitterness. She could almost visualize the path diverging into two, one leading to a potential reconciliation, and one to a final, decisive severing of ties. Tom, she spoke slowly, deliberating the weight of her next words. This isn't just about us anymore. Emma deserves stability and honesty. A quiet desperation seeped into her voice. The allusion to their daughter was both a shield and a sword. Doubt lurked like a thief in the corners of her mind, whispering that allowing Tom back in might fracture the delicate balance they had fought hard to establish. Tom nodded, his acceptance of her unvarnished truth evident. I'm not asking you to trust me completely. Just let me prove I'm worthy of that trust. Prove it? Sarah echoed, an edge creeping back into her tone. What does that even mean after all this time? Words mean nothing, Tom. Then allow me the chance to show you. I want to be involved in Emma's life in every way that S needed. Not just as her father, but as a man who recognizes the weight of the past and the hopes for the future. A flash of anger surged within her, a burn that reminded her of the years wasted in his absence. She wrestled with the instinct to shut down the conversation, to flee from the emotions cascading through her. But there, entwined within that anger, was the tiniest thread of hope that perhaps they could transform this confusion into something productive, a chance for growth, albeit wrapped in pain. Emma interjected, her voice steady against the turbulent air. Mom, I don't want to lose you, but we both deserve a chance to build something new. Please think about what this could mean for both of us. It was Emma's unwavering belief that tore at Sarah's defenses. In Emma's eyes, she recognized the reflection of her own yearning for connection and impulse to rewrite the script they had both been handed. The invocation of a fresh start, however terrifying, beckoned her like a lighthouse through the fog. Sarah took a long, steadying breath, listening as the silence filled with the weight of impending decisions. Could she yield to this allure of vulnerability without losing herself in the process? The battle inside her raged on, but amid the tempest another thought emerged. What if allowing Tom back into their lives meant more than just turning the page? What if it invited the possibility of redefining who they were not just as a family but as individuals? Her resolve steadied, and she found her voice again, the conviction returning. I won't promise you anything, Tom, but I will consider your words, and I'll think about what Emma has asked of me. Tom's relief was palpable, but Sarah knew that this was only the beginning, not a resolution, but instead an invitation to a much more complicated journey. Inside of her, a flicker of determination ignited. She could approach this challenge not as a victim of the past, but as an architect of her own future. Yet, as hope began to weave its way through her heart, she felt the other shoe wanting to drop. What if this rebuilding meant more than just navigating past pain? What if it demanded that she confront deeper truths about herself? Could it bring to light her own hidden capacities? As she held Tom's gaze, she understood that a confrontation was inevitable, one that would stretch beyond the walls of the chapel and into the recesses of her own identity. The first steps into the unknown beckoned her, stirring anticipation and trepidation alike. And then another question pierced through the haze. Could she find the courage to fully engage with her own past, to discover the versions of herself that had been stifled by fear and hurt? With resolve hardening within her, Sarah sensed the horizon shift, teeming with possibility and uncertainty. She was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, but only if she could navigate the most profound confrontation, yet a battle with the shadows of her own soul. With each heartbeat propelling her forward, she wondered, was she truly ready to discover the parts of herself that had long remained dormant? The following days cascaded into a whirlpool of reflection for Sarah. Each interaction with Emma echoed the silent promise she had made to consider Tom's words. Their evenings, once marked only by the hum of routine, became charged with an unspoken tension. The weight of her decision loomed, a cloud that refused to dissipate. As she lay awake one night, unable to silence the incessant chatter in her mind, she pondered the crux of her predicament. What lay at the core of her hesitation? Was it fear of vulnerability, or the nagging question of whether she could truly allow Tom to be part of their lives again? The dimensions of her identity, the mother, the professional, the individual seeking solace from the past, clashed violently. Engaging with the idea of reconciling with Tom required more than raw courage. It demanded introspection. She recalled the brimming cauldron of emotions that had swirled around her during their marriage, love, intertwined with resentment, joy muddied by disappointment. A decision to welcome Tom back also meant excavating those buried sentiments, while crafting a new narrative for her future. Days turned into evenings as Sarah often found herself at the local park, observing Emma play amongst the other children. From a distance she saw her daughter laugh, a sound that resonated purity and vitality. In those moments Sarah acknowledged the truth in Emma's words. They both deserved a chance to build something new. The question was, could she build it with Tom? Determined to seek clarity about her feelings, Sarah poured her thoughts into a journal, tracing the complexities of her emotions, her frustrations, her hopes, and her undeniable anger towards Tom. As she transcribed her chaotic thoughts, a realization began to dawn. Rather than simply recording the narrative of her pain, she was mapping a blueprint for her growth. A few days later, during an ordinary tea break at work, her best friend Lauren sensed something was amiss. Approaching with concern, Lauren asked, "Sarah, you seem distant. Is everything okay?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah hesitated, then decided to share a sanitized version of her struggles. With every word, she felt the steady release of tension woven tight in her chest. "I'm trying to navigate this situation with Tom and Emma. It's like holding two sides of a coin and the edges are sharp," she explained. Lauren listened intently, her brow furrowing in empathy. "You're the one holding that coin, Sarah. You can choose which side you want to show." The metaphor struck Sarah deeply, resonating with her internal struggle. It made her contemplate what version of herself she wanted to present, not just to Tom, but also to Emma and the world. She realized their relationship could evolve not at the expense of her identity, but as an extension of it. As she explored this new understanding, she felt emboldened. It was time. Time to articulate her needs, her boundaries, and her vision for whatever was to come. It was becoming clear that she was not simply redefining her relationship with Tom, but also reclaiming her narrative. This epiphany lit a path within her, urging her to confront the conversation she had avoided for far too long. It was not merely about forgiveness, it was about asserting her authority over her own life choices. And yet, as empowerment surged through her, a tight knot formed in her stomach. The price of this pursuit of truth loomed larger. A jigsaw piece of self-realization that would require a confrontation with Tom. Would he respect her boundaries? Would he truly understand the dimensions of her being she was still unraveling? Part of her felt exhilarated, but another darker part clung to the familiar comfort of anxiety. The picture of what lay ahead crystallized. A confrontation waiting to happen, one that could either fracture them further or forge a new path. Settling into a fragile peace, she understood that tomorrow would not merely be about setting boundaries. It would be the beginning of an essential dialogue, one that could redefine their relationship and, crucially, herself. As she prepared for that inevitable moment, she pondered. Could confronting Tom mean finally uncovering her own hidden depths, the ones she had either ignored or suppressed for the sake of survival? The stakes had never felt higher. The journey into her own psyche, a daunting expedition filled with uncertainty, beckoned. With a newfound resolve radiating within her, Sarah whispered to herself a declaration ready to echo through the lingering shadows of her past. The confrontation was imminent. She was ready to unveil the truths that lay beneath. But would those revelations reshape her reality, or merely serve as a reminder of what once was? The morning sun streamed into Sarah's room, illuminating the scattered pages of her journal on the bedside table. Each entry charted the ebbs and flows of her tumultuous feelings, aligning them like constellations in a night sky filled with uncertainty. Today was the day. She could feel it in the marrow of her bones. She couldn't delay the confrontation any longer. As she prepared for the meeting with Tom, her mind whirled with the countless possibilities of how the conversation could unfold. What if he tried to dismiss her feelings? What if he didn't understand the boundaries she was now ready to assert? Pushing those thoughts aside, she focused on what she wanted to communicate. Clarity, honesty, and an unwavering commitment to her own values and needs. On her way to the cafe where they had agreed to meet, she found herself gripping the steering wheel tighter with every passing moment. The familiar streets morphed into reminders of their past, their laughter echoing in the old bookstore, the silence that had filled their living room during uncomfortable arguments. Those memories warred with her determination to redefine their narrative. Sarah wasn't the same person Tom had known before. She was reshaped by experiences that taught her resilience. Arriving early, she sat in a corner sipping her coffee, her pulse quickening each time the door opened. She rehearsed the words she had carefully chosen, hoping they would linger long enough for Tom to absorb their weight. But the anticipation mingled with dread. Uncertainty draped over her like a looming shadow. When Tom walked in, he looked as familiar as ever, his face etched with concern at the sight of her. As she waved him over, she caught a glimpse of the man she had once loved, which only deepened the knot in her stomach. This meeting was not about past grievances, but about laying the groundwork for a healthier future if they both desired that. "Thanks for coming." Her voice was steadier than she felt. Tom nodded, scanning her expression as if searching for clues about what was to come. Sarah took a deep breath, recalling her journal entries and the power she had felt in writing her truth. "There's a lot we need to address." His eyes widened slightly, an acknowledgement of the seriousness of her tone. "You've reached out asking for a chance to be part of our lives again, but I need to clarify something first. This is not just about you and me. It's about Emma. It's about how we both build a better environment for her." Tom shifted uncomfortably, the weight of her words sinking in. She had caught him off guard. "I've realized that I can't just jump back into anything without knowing how I can protect myself and Emma," she continued, her pulse racing as she articulated her feelings, worth, and boundaries. "I need to be sure that the past won't repeat itself." What she anticipated was a defensive reaction, perhaps a question of why she was being so cautious. Instead, Tom looked vulnerable, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "I know I've made mistakes, but I'm willing to change," he said earnestly. His reply was both unexpected and disarming. Instead of the wall she had expected, there was an opportunity for conversation, a meeting of minds that hadn't happened in years. "I want to believe you," she replied, trying to strike a balance between skepticism and hope. "But I need more than just words. I need actions that show me you're committed to being part of our lives responsibly." This moment of honesty stirred something deeper within Sarah, a sense of power in articulating her needs, a mastery over her own narrative that made her heart race and her palms sweat. It was a discovery that transcended her initial fears. She was advocating for herself, not just as a mother but as a person. As they continued to talk, delving deeper into layers of emotion Sarah had long buried, she realized that the path ahead was less about resolution and more about continuous dialogue, a journey of building trust in conjunction with defining the contours of their relationship. But just as the conversation began to unfold what seemed like a promising understanding, Tom leaned in, his expression shifting from vulnerable to guard up. "But what if we don't see eye to eye in the end? What if you find that you're unwilling to forgive?" That question hung in the air like a sharp knife, jagged and threatening, cutting through the connections they were trying to build. Sarah felt a shiver ripple down her spine. It was a moment of truth layered with an uncharted confrontation. She had anticipated many scenarios, yet this fear of irreconcilable differences had yet to dawn in her preparations. In that instant the realization struck. The journey would demand more than just communication. It involved forging pathways through the fog of unresolved pain that gripped them both. The stakes were escalating. The vulnerability she was exposing was raw and unrefined, but it was also liberating. As she grappled with what lay ahead, a resolute thought surged through her mind. This confrontation was not just about reconciling with Tom, it would define her autonomy over both her past and future. What decisions would Sarah ultimately make as the past loomed like a specter in their ongoing dialogue? Could her newfound strength survive the inevitable storm of their history, or would it require her to step forward into a new yet uncertain territory? The silence between them was palpable, a tension that threatened to unravel the fragile thread of connection they had only just begun to weave. Sarah's heart raced in response to Tom's challenging question. Was she truly ready to face the possibility of irreconcilable differences? The walls she had built around her emotions urged caution, but her freshly discovered strength demanded clarity. "I'm not here to play games," she began, steadier now, her resolve hardening like steel. "I want you to be part of Emma's life, but I cannot afford to open that door without knowing you will respect the boundaries I need in place." Tom blinked, his features drifting into a contemplative frown. The initial surprise on his face morphed into something more earnest, as though he was weighing her words against his own intentions. Sarah leaned slightly forward, sensing the shift in him, a sign that their dialogue could navigate deeper waters, but she still had to tread carefully. His silence hung heavily, and she took it as an invitation to press on. "You've expressed a desire to contribute positively. Show me, and most importantly, show Emma that you can be the father she deserves. You have to prove you understand what that entails." Tom's expression faltered, the vulnerability re-emerging but accompanied now by fear. The acknowledgement of what being a father meant seemed to press down on him like an anchor. "I'm not perfect," he admitted, running a hand through his hair, a gesture of agitation. "I don't think I ever was. But I want to do better. I'll start with small steps if you will give me the chance." Sarah paused, her mind racing through scenarios. Tom's admission wasn't enough. She didn't want surface-level change. The thought bubbled in her chest, the urge to ask him the challenging questions swirling dangerously close to the forefront of her consciousness. Could his commitment hold up against the weight of truth? "Small steps are great, Tom, but we can't avoid the heaviness of our past. You didn't just make mistakes. You hurt both of us deeply. We need to face that too. What's stopping you from doing it again?" Her voice brimmed with cautious intensity, the fear of being vulnerable still lingering. She watched as Tom's facade momentarily cracked, revealing a glimpse of the turmoil that lay beneath. "I don't know. I really don't. I'm scared, but I'm also determined to change. I understand how I let you down and I want to make that right. But talking about the darkness, it scares me just as much," he sighed, leaning back slightly, as if distancing himself from the weight of his confession. In that moment, Sarah recognized the complexity of human emotions, the push and pull, the uncertainty that lay in even the most sincere interactions. She found herself unexpectedly empathizing with him. Beneath the frustration and hurt, she glimpsed a man caught in the throes of regret and the struggle for redemption. That connection was both a balm and a flame. "Then let's not hide from it anymore," she suggested, a new project forming in her mind. "Let us define exactly what this relationship looks like, what it means for Emma and for us. I need to know you're willing to do the inner work, not just the external gestures. Set aside the fear and face your demons. We can't bring Emma into a space muddied with unresolved issues." As Tom's gaze met hers, a flicker of understanding passed between them. He seemed to realize that Sarah was not just demanding change, she was willing to engage in the deeply personal exploration necessary for transformation. That willingness, she knew, could be the catalyst not just for their relationship, but for her own journey as well. Sarah felt a surge of hope amidst the shadows of doubt. Perhaps they could redefine their story on better terms. Yet, a question still loomed: the possibility of failure. What if Tom struggled with the very foundation of transformation? What if the past haunted them despite their best intentions? As she pondered this uncertainty, Sarah felt a familiar tingling urge to reach for her journal. There she could lay bare her thoughts and fears, crafting a tangible roadmap of her feelings. How could she channel this collective exploration into a plan that safeguarded her heart and Emma's? "Tom, if we're going to navigate this together, I think we need to establish regular check-ins, like a commitment of sorts," she proposed, firm conviction threading through her voice. "We need to make space for open dialogue, for sharing progress and setbacks. We can even consider counseling to guide us through it." His eyebrows raised slightly in surprise, but then he nodded with resolve. "I'm willing to try. I can't promise perfection, but I can start with honesty and the desire to change." As they spoke about the structure of their new beginning, Sarah felt the weight of old expectations begin to lift. The discussion opened up a possibility, a path forward grounded in accountability and mutual respect. Yet she couldn't dismiss the creeping thought that perhaps this was just the beginning of a deeper conflict. The future remained uncertain. What if the conversation took turns she hadn't anticipated? Would Tom rise to the occasion, or might he falter when faced with deeper truths and vulnerabilities? As those questions lingered unasked on the tips of her thoughts, Sarah knew this journey was hardly about achieving a simple resolution. It was vastly more intricate. What awaited on the horizon was a meld of courage and confrontation intertwined with the threads of their evolving relationship. How would this renewed partnership redefine them, not just as co-parents, but as individuals seeking healing in the fractured remnants of their past? The moment was ripe for new discoveries, but it was also laced with the tensions of old wounds. Then, just as they teetered on the precipice of this promising turn, another thought crystallized, a stark reminder that every beginning comes with its own set of tests. Would they navigate through the emotional minefield together? Or would their history derail them once more? The air felt different after their conversation, charged with possibility yet laced with uncertainty. Sarah closed her eyes for a brief moment, allowing the residual energy to settle within her. There was an unfamiliar lightness in her chest, a feeling she hadn't associated with Tom in a long time. But mixed with that hope was the weight of skepticism, an internal chorus reminding her of past disappointments. As days passed, Sarah dedicated herself to documenting her reflections. Each entry triggered a wave of emotions, some comforting and others jagged and raw. Every time she wrote, she unearthed pieces of her own narrative that had been buried under the rubble of urgency and heartache. The introspection was empowering, yet it also highlighted how intricately her feelings were woven into the fabric of her relationship with Tom, not just as a former partner but as a co-parent. One evening, while Emma was occupied with her coloring books, Sarah sat at the small desk in the corner of their modest living room, pen scratching against paper. She wrote about the themes of trust and vulnerability, how they intertwined with her desires for both herself and Emma. With each word, the vision of the future she craved took form, each sentence a thread weaving itself into her master plan. While writing, Sarah realized her focus had largely been on how Tom needed to change. Yet, had she paused to consider how she could evolve too? The thought prompted an internal interrogation. Who was she beyond being a mother and the keyholder to a shared past? What about her own ambitions and dreams that had been overshadowed during the tumultuous times? That week brought a jolt of energy, and she decided it was time to attend an adult education course. She had long contemplated public speaking. The thought of addressing a group terrified her, and yet it felt liberating. Could building her confidence and voice help shape not only her narrative, but also her role as a functional co-parent with Tom? The decision seemed like an act of defiance against her fears. The first class was daunting, filled with a mix of nervous students all vying for empowerment. Yet, as she sat there, feeling a rush of excitement coursing through her veins, Sarah recognized this as the grounding she needed. The instructor emphasized the importance of articulating one's own story as a method of connection, a concept that mirrored her recent conversations with Tom. Over the next few weeks, she found herself crafting more than just speeches. She was sculpting a new self-image intertwined with her aspirations. She poured every feeling into her practice: fears of inadequacy, dreams of independence, and desires for Emma's well-being. Each class honed her power to express deeply personal truths, equipping her not just with skills, but with an aura of self-assuredness that rekindled her sense of identity. The balance between her newfound growth and the evolving dynamics with Tom was fragile. Whenever she reflected on their discussions, she felt compelled to ask questions she hadn't dared to voice before. Was she truly ready to blend the confident woman before Tom with the co-parent she needed to be? The stakes felt incredibly high, and she wondered if he would fully respect the transformations taking place within her. Then one fateful day, as tension from unanswered questions swirled ominously in her mind, Sarah found herself at the grocery store. She bumped into an old friend, someone who once added vibrancy to her world and ignited her ambitions. Their exchange surged with warmth, yet closed the door on the looming distance she felt from the past. This brief encounter stirred something deep within her, reigniting forgotten dreams of exploration and uncovering personal aspirations outside of her role in their disjointed family. As she returned home, her heart settled back into an anxious rhythm. Was she ready to bridge the gap between who she was becoming and who she had been in relation to Tom? The thought worried her, and yet the allure of potential change beckoned with undeniable magnetism. In their next meeting, Sarah felt a flicker of apprehension but also a newfound strength. Would she express her growth and ambitions? Perhaps in doing so, she could challenge Tom to meet her at a point where they could emerge not just as co-parents, but as individuals who encouraged each other's journeys. Questions reverberated through her mind as she prepared to delve into this next conversation. Would her strength pave the way to a powerful transformation of their relationship, or would the fears drawn from their fractured past close the door on this newfound path? What awaited her at the crossroads of this emotional journey was as uncertain as it was thrilling, touched with uncertainty and laden with hope for both her present and future. The air was thick with unsaid words during the following meeting with Tom. They sat across from each other at a small cafe, the sun streaming through the windows, illuminating the anxieties that rippled beneath the surface. Sarah clutched her coffee, the warmth grounding her, yet her hands trembled slightly. She did not want to revert to the familiar script of their old conversations, stained with past grievances. Today's dialogue demanded authenticity, a real exchange, unfiltered by fear or bygone resentment. "Sarah, you've seemed different lately," Tom said as he stirred sugar into his drink, avoiding her gaze. The tentative compliment hung in the air, a double-edged sword. Was it genuine or merely an observation steeped in confusion? "What do you mean by different?" she pressed, subtly challenging him to dig deeper, to shed light on his interpretation of her evolution. He looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes as if caught off guard by her assertiveness. "You seem more grounded, like you're moving forward." His words ignited a spark within her. Acknowledgement felt invigorating. Yet she needed to navigate this conversation with care. Unpacking their relationship, even in its current state, required precision and an acceptance that vulnerability could coexist with strength. "Moving forward is putting it lightly. I started a public speaking class." The admission rolled off her tongue, stirring a thrill inside. Despite the inherent vulnerability in sharing this piece of herself, she observed Tom's response closely. Would he celebrate her courage or be dismissive, retreating to the safety of cynicism that characterized their previous lines of communication? "Wow," he offered hesitantly, the surprise softening his features. "That's a big step. How is it going?" "Surprisingly well," she replied, encouraged by his interest. "It forces me to confront my fears, But even more than that, it's made me consider who I am beyond the roles I've played. Sarah leaned forward, eyes sparkling with determination. I need you to know that while I'm working on my growth, I want to encourage you to explore yours too. We share a daughter. It's vital we both embody growth for Emma's sake. The conversation cracked open the facade they wore. Tom's demeanor shifted, betraying a hint of vulnerability. He at last allowed himself to engage in the dialogue she had long awaited. I've been thinking a lot about my own life lately, he confessed quietly, tracing patterns with his finger on the table. I just don't know where to start. Here it was. The moment Sarah needed, yet deliverance came laced with both promise and reticence. She recognized this unfamiliar territory could lead them to a crossroads either of reinvention or further entrenchment in their respective recounts of hurt. What about pursuing something you're passionate about? She suggested, her voice steady. Finding a way to connect with Emma that isn't anchored in our past? Tom nodded slowly, the gears of reflection visibly turning in his mind. She watched as the light shifted within him, a flicker of hope igniting the conversation. With every passing moment, they unearthed layers of understanding. Each question and answer became a thread weaving their shared narrative anew. But as they wandered deeper into this dialogue, Sarah felt an undeniable shift within herself. Who was she showing up as? Was she truly ready to bear witness to Tom breaking down his walls while continuing to build her own? The fear of his potential failure intertwined itself with the hope of his reconciliation. Awash in these mixed emotions, Sarah questioned her motives. Was her intent to empower him genuine, or a strategy to ease her own insecurities about embracing change? With resolute clarity, she decided she needed to broach the difficult points that still lingered unaddressed. The air between them was thick with anticipation as she took a deep breath. Tom, I need to tell you something that has been weighing on me since we last spoke. As she opened her mouth to express her thoughts, the impending conversation hung in the balance. Would walking this tightrope lead them to liberation, or would it spiral them further into the depths of their past heartaches? The moment teetered on the edge of profound revelation, and Sarah braced herself for the dive. As Sarah steadied herself to face Tom, she took a deep breath, gathering the fragmented pieces of her courage. I feel like there's still a layer that we haven't addressed, she began, her voice intentional yet measured. It's about trust and the commitment that you're willing to make for Emma and me moving forward. Tom's brow furrowed as he leaned back, absorbing her words. I realized how much I took for granted before, he admitted. I hurt you both deeply, and I know I can't expect forgiveness overnight. I want to prove that I can change, but I need guidance too. This was the moment, the pivotal shift where vulnerability met the potential for growth. No longer just pawns in their shared past, they were architects of a future still under construction. As the dialogue unfolded along the contours of their shared aspirations, Sarah felt a connection grow, one that could potentially reshape not just their relationship, but their individual identities as well. Each revelation in question was a brick, building strong foundations for a more constructive narrative. What if we establish some concrete steps, Tom? She proposed. Regular check-ins, family activities, counseling sessions. I need to know that we are both committed to this journey. Not just for ourselves but for Emma. It's vital that she sees us working together, not just functioning. After a moment of contemplative silence, Tom nodded, his shoulders visibly heavy but his eyes reflecting resolve. I'd be willing to try. I can't promise perfection, but if we lay everything open it may help both of us. Sarah sensed the gravity of this commitment, envisioning a roadmap that could redefine their roles as parents and individuals, each represented, not just by their shared pain, but as individuals willing to support each other in their journeys towards healing and understanding. As they continued to weave their individual stories together, she could see glimmers of genuine hope emerging. She felt proud of herself, aware that her own developments were inscribed into this new chapter. She had taken leaps into the unknown, unearthing the strength to speak her truth. Over the next few weeks, tangible changes unfolded. Sarah and Tom began to implement the plans they discussed. They explored family outings and established routines that prioritized Emma's emotional well-being. Along the way, Sarah delved deeper into her own passions, integrating her new public speaking skills into her life not merely as a tool for personal growth, but as a way to inspire others, including Emma. One afternoon, in the heart of the park, She stood in front of a small group of parents from Emma's school, delivering a speech about resilience and the importance of constructive communication in families. She poured her heart into her words, sharing her own journey of forgiveness and strength. The applause at the end felt like the culmination of all her hard work, a true reflection of her newfound confidence and identity. In that moment, with the sun dappling through the trees, Sarah realized she had not only transformed her relationship with Tom, but had also unearthed a version of herself that had long been dormant. She was no longer defined solely by their past, but by her evolving narrative, her strength as a parent, and her pursuit of personal goals. Meanwhile, Tom also began taking his own steps of accountability. He attended the family activities with enthusiasm, showing up not just for Emma, but also for the commitment he had made to Sarah. They collaborated on parenting, supporting one another's growth rather than rehashing the past. As they stood together, watching Emma play in the park, Sarah felt fulfillment wash over her. She could sense the shifts in their dynamic, a quiet assurance that they were both committed to this new identity. The walls that had once divided them were now bridges, encouraging dialogue, growth, and mutual respect. In the days that followed, Sarah savored these moments deeply. The feeling of success wasn't wrapped in perfection, but in the beautiful chaos of change. Each family outing filled with laughter, honest discussions about their past, and visions for the future resonated with a vibrant sense of hope. She felt a solid confidence in her newfound voice and the ability to craft her own narrative, one defined by deliberate choices and genuine connections, rather than lingering bitterness. This was no longer about just protecting what had been lost. It was about celebrating what could still unfold. The juxtaposition of her former self and who she had become rippled through her being. Once haunted by shadows of betrayal, she now radiated strength, emerging not only as a mother, but as an empowered individual. As they navigated their new shared journey, all the uncertainties mingled with glimmers of hope. Sarah understood the profound reality. It was not about completely overcoming pain. It was about fostering resilience through healing and shared commitment. In that concluding moment, standing side by side in the golden sunlight, Sarah knew she had conquered far more than her individual journey. She had become an architect of possibility, a true testament to the power of transformation and connection, nurtured through vulnerability. As this chapter closed, one thing was crystal clear. Healing was not a destination but an ongoing journey, and she was just beginning. Now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your engagement makes a difference.